Hi, I'm Zane Stein with the Astrology Collective, and we're here with Mary Shea. And thank you for joining us, Mary.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start off asking you tell us a little about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Connecticut and I'm in Connecticut now. So born in New Haven, raised in Hamden, spent my summers in Guilford on Lee's Island. And now I'm back. I'm back in Connecticut. In between, I've lived in Illinois. I've lived in New Jersey. I've lived in Maryland for a long time. I was in Maryland. And I've lived in Germany for little under 2 years.
I've been in all of those states, but I've never lived in any of them. And I've been in Germany, in Dusseldorf, I think it was. So you sound like you've hopped around pretty much as I have. I've lived all over the U.S.
I've been mostly, I left Connecticut to go to college, at 18, but I spent a lot of time in Maryland. I would say altogether, probably 30 years in Maryland. So then I came back to Connecticut to help take care of my parents. They've both passed over at this point.
And you decided, well, I'm home now. After they passed, and decided to stay there.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable in this house. I'm very comfortable. So I'm staying here for right now. My kids are in New Jersey, New York, and also Texas. So at some point I'll move closer, but right now I'm very comfortable here in Connecticut.
It'd be hard to move closer to New Jersey, New York, and also be close to Texas.
This is true.
You have to get two houses,
Yep.
So most people, when their children have something they'd like to be when they grow up, sometimes they go through several. When I grow up, I want to be phases. Can you think of anything particular when you were growing up that you really, that's what you wanted to be?
Growing up, when I was young, like 12, 13, I thought I would grow up and cure cancer. That was my ambition. My mother is a nurse, and I thought about nursing and decided that it wasn't for me. So I went into medical technology instead. But then that really did not last that long anyway, and I went into astrology. So I've been doing astrology full time, basically since 78, as full time as an astrologer can be. Let's put it that way. We work full time, but we don't always earn full time, depending upon what we're doing.
So you've been an astrologer, not just into astrology, but an astrologer since 1978.
That's when I turned professional, yes.
So you have a degree in counseling psychology. Mm-hmm. Which came first, the interest in psychology or the interest in astrology?
Actually, astrology came first. And then when I was doing readings for people, I realized I needed some psychological background. And I actually started studying psychology before I went back to school. And it was very interesting that particular year, and this is 1978, I had a eclipse in the solar return in the 8th house, opposing Pluto in the 2nd. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to be checked out, but instead I started studying psychology and became a professional astrologer.
Well, the Pluto and depth psychology kind of go hand in hand. if you have something hitting your Pluto, you're going to want to dig deep. So I can see the connection there.
Yeah. School was very good in that I would go to school and I would listen to the professors and I would translate what they were saying into astrological planets and lingo. And then I would go home and I would listen to clients and I would translate what they were telling me into psychological lingo. So I got very versed in going back and forth between the two.
You have a particular psychological discipline that, you know, like, are you more into Freud or Jung or Adler, or do you have a particular direction your psychology takes you?
It was the school I went to, which was Loyola University in Maryland, was Adler. You know, that was very much along the line of counseling astrology as opposed to psychology that dealt with drugs or behavioralism or any of the other. There was a Jungian track at the school, but that was in the pastoral counseling track, and I was not in that track. So I did not study Jung.
So what attracted you to astrology when you got involved with that?
Yeah, this is a strange story. In 1975, I had taken a job at Good Samaritan Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. And my husband at the time needed a new car. So the agreement was I would work part-time and, you know, earn the money for the car and pay off the car. And my first week when I was in the lab, I suddenly heard a voice as clearly as you're hearing my voice. And it wasn't the voice of the person I was sitting with. And I thought they were playing a joke on me. I mean, I actually was looking under the tables, you know, was there a microphone somewhere, you know, that this was some kind of joke that the laboratory was pulling on me, you know, an initiation of a new employee. But then after I had a clairaudient experience, I had a clairsensing experience, which clairsensing, there's no words and there's no pictures. The only thing you can do, it's an instant knowing. And the only thing you can do is translate that knowing into pictures and words that other people can understand. And the best way I can say what occurred during that clairsentient experience was that I was out in the universe and I was looking down at our solar system. And I knew there was a method to the madness. There was a method to the rotation of the planets. And I knew the only way I would understand that in this lifetime was to study astrology.
Wow.
And then I came back from the clairsensing experience and I had a clairvoyant experience where I saw as clearly as I'm seeing you in midair. And then there was like a pop sound and I was back. And the person in the room with me was on the same word of the same sentence as when I left. And I was so freaked out, I actually picked up my purse and said, "Excuse me," and attempted to run out of the laboratory. I was still a med tech at that time. And then I realized there's nowhere I can go. There's no, you know, this had nothing to do with the laboratory, had nothing to do with those people. And that's when I started studying astrology, or as I like to say, remembering astrology.
Yes. The Gnostics were people that believe that we already know everything. We just have to become aware, look in, and find it. We already know it, everything we need.
Yeah.
I noticed you also study medical technology, and you did mention your medical experience with the lab and stuff. Did I read correctly that you also were involved with being a midwife?
Involved in a midlife what?
Midwife.
No,
Yeah.
no, I took a midwife course at
Oh,
one
okay.
point, not to be a midwife. This was before the birth of my third child, and there had been some trauma in the first birth, which still played out somewhat in the second birth. And I was correcting things. So I took a midwife course by a particular person, and I don't remember the person's name at this point, but she used a lot of visualization in the process of birth. And that's why I took the course. And it was a very different experience. So yeah, to a certain extent, I did, did study midwifery, but only for my personal health benefit.
So that it is a whole other facet, another dimension. I find that intriguing because the way I see it, being a midwife is helping, like a process along if there are any stumbling blocks. So you're there as a guide, and in some ways, astrologers, that's what we do with words and emotional support. We're sometimes our midwives helping people to give birth to a higher self or better self.
I admit there is some, there is a midwife notation or comment that's in my book, Heart Journey, and about manifestation. And basically what I'm saying is that bringing something, attracting something, using that attracting muscle in the heart that we all have, but most of us don't know and don't use, but using that muscle in the heart to attract and bring something into manifestation is the gentle art of skillful navigation, just like a midwife who helps the baby into the world, but never forces, never pulls, never rushes. It's just simply there guiding the baby into the world. And the process of manifestation through attraction is similar in the way that you must guide something into the world and in order to attract it and have it manifest.
Let's talk about your book, Planets and Solar Returns: Yearly Cycles of Transformation and Growth. Now, it's the first book that I ever read on solar returns, and I can say that most of the people I've talked to say it's the best one that they've read on the topic. You did a lot of research. So first of all, for those people who are maybe a little unclear, what is a solar return?
Okay, a solar return chart is set up for the time that the sun comes back to its natal position. So when you're born, if you're born, the doctor looks up at the sky and the sun is at a particular point, degrees, minutes, and seconds are important. Well, once a year, the sun comes back to that. And it's not your birth time. Because of leap year, it changes from year to year. So it needs to be calculated on a computer. But what the solar return indicates is that it tells you the themes of the coming year. It gives you an idea of where your energy is going to go, what you're going to focus on, or what you might like to focus on. and how to maximize your potential for that particular year. So it's a wonderful guide. And I tell people it's the easiest predictive technique that you can use, as opposed to something like progressions, which involve a double chart technique, or transits, which come and go. This is like, a capsule of the year. And I think it's just a beautiful way to maximize your potential in any given year.
So what was it that made you so interested in solar returns that you made it a focus of a major study? That what got you into solar returns as opposed to some other technique in astrology?
In that year, 1975, in that first year, I went through everything. Transits, progressions, solar arcs, you name it. I remembered everything. I poured through everything. And somewhere around that time, Ray Merriman came into town, and I have to give him credit. And he spoke about solar returns. And I'm not sure of the exact year, was it 76, 77, but it was early on. It was before I turned professional, certainly. And I left that lecture, and of course, I didn't have computers that calculated charts back then. I went home and hand calculated over 20 years worth of solar returns. You know how long that took me. And started studying them. And I kept studying them, and I kept seeing these patterns in the solar returns from one year to the next, which is one of the things that's kind of unusual about my book, is that I bring up this pattern going from one year to the next. But then in 1980, my husband at the time built a Heathkit computer. So we had one of the earliest computers. And when a client would come in and I would read the solar return, and do a reading for the person with the transits and progressions and everything else. And when they left, I would go to the computer and take notes on everything they told me. And so I had a file for Saturn in the first, Saturn in the second, Saturn in the third, all of the planets. And after 10 years, they weren't telling me anything I didn't know. That's how the solar return book originated. It's original research from 10 years worth of clients, what they told me.
All right, that definitely explains. I remember the days of doing charts by hand, and I remember wanting a Heathkit computer, but not being able to afford one. That's
It was GI Bill. It was free.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. Yes. Recently, I saw that you also give talks on electional astrology. Now, electional astrology kind of a spin-off from solar returns.
Not really. It's a spinoff from horary, which I don't do anymore. Gilbert Navarro was in the Baltimore area, and Gilbert Navarro taught a class in horary at my house. And so I learned horary. And from there, I jumped into electional. I had an experience at one point. It's surprising how we can request something and have it come to us. And early on, this is probably in the late 80s, I had read about a crystal in a book by Katrina Raphael, and it was a tantric twin crystal. And so one day I decided I wanted a tantric twin crystal. And so I just said to God and the universe, send me this tantric twin crystal. I wanted the 2 points the same size, common slope to the points, and a rainbow in between. I'm not going to ask anybody for it. I'm not going to write it down. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to look for it. I'm not going to buy it. Just send it to me and I will take it as a sign. And 6 months later, I was with the Cherokee medicine woman and she suddenly stops and goes, yes, and begins to converse with something on the ceiling. Uh-huh, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. And goes, I have something for you. She reaches in her bag and pulls out a tantric twin crystal. 2 points, same size, common slope to the points, rainbow in between. That was my beginning with the whole thing of electional astrology. In a way, Ray Merriman showed us how to simplify solar returns, because solar returns were always read on the outside of the natal chart, and it was a 2-chart technique rather than being a single chart technique.
Right.
Electional astrology, I like it simplified in the same way that I like simplified solar returns. There's so many rules in electional astrology, but the number one rule is that the chart has to say what you want to happen. We already know the language. You're just writing a sentence. You're writing a story in planets, houses, and aspects. And it's very simple to do. And I love that process. I love helping people to attract what they want in their life. And I don't, it's not the marriage chart, it's not the business chart, though I've done those. It's the consumer complaint chart that I sent to Michael Dell, they got me a new computer. It's simple things. How do you sell your house quickly and then rent it back for a year while you build your house? These are the kind of charts where people want to attract something specific into their lives. And that's why I love electional astrology, to help them to do that.
For those that are not a little sure what electional astrology is, we're not talking about doing a chart for an election. We're choosing to elect or select the time when you do something. Just as an aside, I did an electional chart to pick the time to send in my form for Australian citizenship.
Mhm.
And most of the time when I've done electional charts, I avoid of course moons, because I'm unsure how it's going to happen. This time I said, you know what? I'm going to use the void of course moon, because my gut feeling says that means nothing is going to stand in the way of getting what I want.
Mhm.
And they told me when I mailed it in, it could take up to 6 months. I got my citizenship thing in 3 weeks.
Great. Great.
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer in choosing the time for something that you really, really want. There has to be that, it has to be important to you for you to come up with a chart that has the right sentences, as you put it.
Right.
Okay. So astrology is like a science, but it's also rather mystical in a lot of ways. And you've been a student of mysticism most of your life, in the metaphysical. I understand that it also inspired you to write under a pen name of Mary Juno.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little about Mary Juno. What's she like?
Well, Mary Juno, first of all, is a family name. So my great grandmother was her maiden name was Mary Juno, and I admire her greatly. And when I was writing Heart Journey, that's the name of the book I wrote, then my good friend, who is a romance writer, happened to mention to me that when you write books in different genres, you know, they're totally different. She would use a different name. She would use her initials instead of her full name to let people know this is different. And I thought about this in regards to astrology. And I wanted to say to people, to be clear to people, that Mary Juno does not write astrology. She writes about metaphysics, and she specifically writes about the heart chakra without using the word chakra. But this process of manifestation, this process of attracting, and also creating a co-creative partnership with a higher force, whatever you want to call that force. I call it God. You can call it spirit, soul, you know, primordial mind. It doesn't matter. You're working with something higher than yourself. So Mary Juno and also Heart Journey have no astrology in them, but they are about the mystical journey that a lay person can take, where you don't have to be behind walls. You don't have to be cloistered. You don't have to be professed. Just the person with kids and a job, you know, can begin to co-create their life that they want and attract what they need and what they want and what they desire into their life. And that's what Heart Journey is about.
Beautiful. Okay, let's go back to solar returns, and I'm really looking forward to your upcoming talk. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be sharing with us during the talk?
During the solar return talk, it's an introductory talk so that there's enough information that when you go home, you can do a solar return. You can look at your own solar returns, and I hope people bring their solar returns, to the lecture, so that as I bring up different things, they can look at their charts and they can begin to relate to their charts. And that's the beauty of this lecture, is that it deals with misconceptions so that you're on the right track. It's a beginning lecture, so someone who is just beginning astrology can understand what's going on. If you can read a chart or look at a chart, then you can understand a solar return. And you'll walk out of this particular lecture with a new respect for your own solar return, and you have an ability to understand it.
Really looking forward to that. So other than the planets and solar returns, are there any other astrology themed books that you've written?
Yeah, there is on my website, there's a free little booklet that you can download about solar returns. It's called Solar Returns: A Study. And it's a PDF, so you can just go ahead and download it. You don't even have to give me your email or anything like that. And it has information in it that's not in the solar return book. It's an article that Noel Till asked me to write a long time ago for a Llewellyn anthology. And so it investigates things like precession, and different elements of the solar return to kind of help you get on the right track, and that's free. There's also, this is in book form. It's a booklet, or it's also in Kindle, and that's making choices with the outer planet transits: Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and that's been translated into Spanish also.
That sounds cool. I'm gonna have to look that one up. I haven't read that one. Definitely So, are you planning any other books?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's enough. If you say too much,
On the astrology side, an electional astrology book, absolutely. And I've been collecting material and collecting charts for that. And that, I don't know when that'll come out. It's not, it's not near publication at this point. I'm still working on that one. And on the Mary Juno side, there is a lower chakra book. Because what I'm finding is that heart journey is a big leap for some people. And the lower chakra book deals with anger, deals with fear, deals with the ego, control, things like that. And I have a lot of information on that too. So yeah, those are the two that I'm looking at this point.
So you mentioned your website. Do you want to just tell people the address of your website in case they want to check it out and download the booklet?
Sure. It's maryshea.com. That makes it real simple. So that's MARYSHEA.com. And when you go there, you'll see there's an astrological tab and there is a mystical tab. And so whatever it is that you're interested in, it's all there. And you can download the Solar Returns of Study is in English, it's in Portuguese, and it's in Spanish. And it's free.
So we're just about done. I'd like to close to ask if there's anything else you might want to share with us.
I just hope that people take advantage of some of the free information on my website and also look at their life as something that they can create in a beautiful way for themselves. Whether you're using astrology or you're using metaphysics or you're using co-creation, this is a beautiful gift that we have. Life is a beautiful gift. And you can change it. It's malleable. You can add to it. You can create differently. And there are tools to help you to do that. And I just hope whatever path people are on, that they realize that there is this beautiful option in all of our lives to create something better.
Very well said. Thank you. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. It has been quite a long time since we last talked, so I'm very glad to have this opportunity, and I look forward to your talk.
Thank you very much for having me, and goodbye.
Bye.